It's been a couple weeks, but we are back here live on Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on a Wednesday afternoon. Got plenty of good stuff to talk about here on today's show. Obviously, the NFL Draft is now in the rearview mirror. There's plenty of stuff to break down about those Cincinnati Bengals as we move past the NFL Draft. And we kind of hit a lull here for the next couple of months. But again, like I said, plenty of stuff to talk about as Cincinnati continues with their offseason and we approach 2025 Bengals training camp. Before we get into that, thanks so much for hanging out, by the way, here on a Wednesday afternoon. Stone Shields, got my right-hand man, Chris Daughtry, here helping us out producing today's live show. Boy, is it nice to have a producer back, not doing any solo stuff today. But grade the Shemar Stewart pick, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Obviously, the most noteworthy thing that has happened with this organization since the last time we were live here on the channel over a couple of weeks ago was, of course, the first-round choice of Shemar Stewart. Definitely mixed reviews from Bengals fans, mixed reviews from myself, honestly, to be completely transparent with you. I think on night one, or that night, first round of the NFL Draft, I definitely had, a little disappointment and a little concern, obviously, with the Shemar Stewart pick. But as time continues to go on, I'm starting to warm up to the idea of, hey, Shemar Stewart was the Cincinnati Bengals' first pick at number 17 overall, and I think the future does look pretty bright for Shemar Stewart. But obviously there are some concerns. We'll break down all that here on today's show. Get those grades for me into the comments of today's live stream. Bengals Prod is here. He says, or he or she says, what is up? What is going on, Bengals Prod? Millie Evans also hanging out with us here on today's show. With a grade of A-. Brandon says it is a C pick. Lion OM says B-. Bailey Victory Parkway is here hanging out. Appreciate you, Bailey. Tommy says B. Let's see. Sharon Howard says, I think he will be nice. The Sky Warrior says B. Appreciate that from the Sky Warrior. Epic MX 690 says A-. You know, the thing, obviously, with the Shemar Stewart pick, as we'll get into on today's show, there's just so much risk with the selection, right? Because you look at his numbers at Texas A&M, was there for 3 years, and only had, 4.5 sacks the whole time, which Bengals are looking for somebody to sack the quarterback. Now, all the traits are there, right? He was the traits guy. Spent a lot of time talking about him when we were down at the NFL Combine. And, look, lots of NFL teams were really, really high on Shemar Stewart. You know, there was talk about him, cracking the top 10. There was also talk about him sliding down to the end of the first round. Cincinnati ultimately gets him basically right in the middle at 17, and we'll see if Al Golden and that defensive staff could develop him and get him in a spot where he can really contribute to this team in year one. That's what Cincinnati needs. This can't be a project with Shemar Stewart. Need contributions in year one. And a $5 super chat here on today's show from the Sky Warrior 2. Appreciate that from the Sky Warrior. He says the Bengals can win the Super Bowl this year. Just have to take it one game at a time, although Will Howard concerns me. Sweep the North. Appreciate the $5 super chat. I'm not sure what you're concerned about with Will Howard. Chris, any ideas? I know you don't got a mic, unfortunately, but would you be concerned? Yeah. Would you be concerned about Will Howard? I mean, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh, right? For as their starter, and then obviously, we got the appreciate the super chat. Sky Warrior, it does mean a lot to us, but I get it. If I assume you're an Ohio State fan, there, obviously, I've got a ton of buddies that are Ohio State fans that are also Bengals fans, and on day 3 of the draft, they were a little nauseous with the fact that, hey, Jack Sawyer and Bill Howard are both going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and, obviously going to have to play the Bengals twice a year, and there is a pretty heated rivalry between those two, obviously, and a lot of Bengals fans, a lot of Steelers fans don't like each other, so I certainly get it. Will Howard, he's not going to start for Pittsburgh. I mean, I would be shocked. Maybe Aaron Rodgers changes his mind and ultimately decides not to play, and Pittsburgh's in a spot where it's like, well, we don't really have a quarterback here that we trust to go out there. Maybe Will Howard is the best guy. I get the frustration as a Buckeye fan for him going there, but as far as concerning for Joe Burrow and this Bengals team, I don't think there is anything to be concerned about. And what else did the Sky Warrior say here? Said, letting Jack Sawyer go to Pittsburgh is a mistake that will haunt us for the next plus decade. You're a lot higher on Jack Sawyer than I am, which is totally all right. Totally okay. But, yeah, I don't know if I'm too worried about Jack Sawyer there in Pittsburgh, especially with the tackles that Cincinnati currently have. But two Buckeyes going to the Steelers. We'll see what their future has in store. Another opportunity here for you guys to sound off. I'm going to know what you guys think here on today's show. Who is your favorite Bengals draft pick? Let me know. Get a name for me down in the comments section right now. Obviously, 6 to choose from. Cincinnati had a pick in each of the first 6 rounds. I think my favorite one is Dylan Fairchild, who Cincinnati took in the 3rd round. Interior offensive lineman out of Georgia. The expectation, Dan Pitcher made it very clear, the expectation for Dylan Fairchild is to come in here year 1 and start at that left guard spot. And that's what I expect to happen. A lot on Scott Peters' plate, of course. Has to really do a good job of developing him. And I'm really looking forward to Dylan Fairchild protecting Joe Burrow. Also see a Taj Brooks comment in the comment section as well from Epic MX. That would probably be my next guy that I would say. I think the Bengals really got a steal in Taj Brooks in the 6th round. Obviously, it was well documented. This draft class was really loaded at the running back position. And I think you got a lot better value in Taj Brooks than where exactly you picked him in the draft there in that 6th round. It really rounds out your running back room. Running back was kind of a sneaky need for this football team, and then in a matter of a couple weeks, you get the good news that, hey, Zack Moss is going to come back on a restructured deal, which that kind of broke the details from SproTrack were released today, and we'll discuss that here on this live show. And, the news with Zack Moss, obviously Samaje Perine in free agency. Now you got Taj Brooks in the draft. Hey, look at that running back room and say, wow, that might be, a borderline strength of this football team, which obviously is good news. Ethan says Barrett Carter. That's interesting. I'll just be honest with you. I don't really know. I know Barrett Carter really was hyped when he first got to Clemson, and then it felt like he hasn't really done a ton since. I could be wrong. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I've watched, copious amounts of Barrett Carter tape, because I have not. But that's kind of a roll the dice one for me. We'll see. I don't know. I'm obviously hoping for the best. Thought it was interesting that Cincinnati opted to take 2 linebackers, which, again, we'll get into on today's show. But, it felt like I think the Demetrius Knight pick definitely is growing on me. But then a couple rounds later, getting another linebacker when Lathan Ransom, who, if the Sky Warrior is an Ohio State fan, I really wanted Lathan Ransom right in that 4th round, and then he gives a couple of picks later to Carolina. So we'll see. Hopefully Al Golden can do some good things with Barrett Carter. All right, another $2 super chat here from the Sky Warrior. I appreciate that, Sky Warrior. I'm sending in those supers saying, how good does the defense need to be to win it all? That's the thing. I get the whole phrase, defense wins championships, whatever. But, this defense just can't stink, I don't think necessarily it has to be top half of the league for them to win the Super Bowl. Your offense is that loaded. Believe it or not, your offense this coming year, if everybody stays healthy, obviously number 9 specifically, it's going to be better than it was last year. And your offense was borderline unstoppable last year. So I don't really think the defense needs to be that good. Do they need to be a top 20 defense? Probably, I would say. Probably within the top 20. In that 20 spot, I think you had a top 20 defense with this top 1, top 2 offense that you have. I think that would be enough. But that's what's so crazy about this Bengals team. You're not in a spot where it's like, oh, we need a top 10 defense to go win a championship. It's not true. You don't. Offense is good enough, and hopefully we see a lot of improvement on the defensive side of the ball. Sky Warrior, appreciate your super chat once again. Talking linebackers also on today's show, as we mentioned. Cincinnati made 2 selections at that linebacker position in the NFL draft with Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter, South Carolina and Clemson, respectively. What's your confidence level in the Bengals linebacker room? Scale it for me 1 to 10, 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. I think that's a room that's going to look totally different for Cincinnati here in 2025. The writing kind of is on the wall here with these selections that, hey, Jermaine Pratt's not coming back. I think most of us, we all knew that at this point, that, hey, Jermaine Pratt, his time here in Cincinnati has come to an end, which, by the way, put in a lot of great work here in the city of Cincinnati. Lots of great moments, obviously picking off Derek Carr in the wild card round several years ago at Paycor Stadium when you went on your Super Bowl run. we all will remember that interception probably for the rest of our lives. It was an incredible play, storybook play. As far as I'm concerned, it makes him a Bengals legend. But, his time's up here in Cincinnati. He requested that trade. We were wondering, would Cincinnati be able to at least get a 7th-round pick out of him? Obviously, that did not end up transpiring. And, look, it's only, I would expect it within, a week or two before we get the official news that, hey, Jermaine Pratt is going to be released. Obviously, you got Logan Wilson spearheading that linebacker room, who, by the way, I'm still very high on Logan Wilson. Past couple of years haven't been his best, but he played through a lot of injuries. Hopefully, he can stay healthy, obviously, in 2025. But bringing back his linebacker coach from when he was a rookie here in the NFL with Al Golden at that defensive coordinator spot, I think really is going to do a lot for Logan Wilson. You're going to see him out there playing a lot more freely, a lot quicker out there as well. And I think it's going to spell good things for the Cincinnati Bengals defense. But let me know in the comments section. Scale it for me. Al Golden's got to work some magic in this room. You got a lot of youth there. Obviously, you're bringing in Oren Burks from Philadelphia, fresh off his Super Bowl. So that's a good veteran to get into a room as well. But you're losing Jermaine Pratt. Only a matter of time, as I just mentioned. And Akeem Davis-Gaither obviously is gone to Arizona as well. So the room's going to look a lot different. Epic MX says 7 to 8. Al Golden's burner says 10. Appreciate you hanging out, Al Golden's burner. Brandon says Demetrius Knight is 25 years old. Will probably be 26 during the season. I don't know what Zach was thinking. Obviously, it was a collaborative effort between Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, and Al Golden, by the way, who, as I look at this draft and what Cincinnati did over the course of their 6 picks, Al Golden had a lot of pull, as I think he should, right? If you're coming from that collegiate level, and he was at the top of the game, the top of the sport there at Notre Dame. I think, Zach Taylor really leaned on Golden hard in this draft, and we'll see. It's tough to kind of, obviously we did our grades video. Make sure you check that out if you haven't done so already. But it's really tough to kind of give actual grades just, a couple days after the draft. Like, we'll really know what this draft class is like in a couple of years, right, if we're going to be completely honest. So at this point, it's all kind of just guesswork. But I get the frustration with Demetrius Knight, but when you hear, I really encourage you to go check out Al Golden talking about Demetrius Knight, because it got me a little bit fired up for him. This guy's a mature guy, real cerebral guy out there on the football field. That's what Cincinnati needs. They need mature guys to come in, especially if you're taking a guy with so much risk in Shemar Stewart in that first round. So I've got a lot of high hopes for Demetrius Knight Jr. I get it. Probably was a bit of a reach at the spot you took him in the 2nd round, but I think he's going to come in. He's going to start right next to Logan Wilson. That's going to be the plan, so we'll see. Got a lot on his plate immediately. It's K1 SWN says, how do you feel about linebacker? Yeah, you're concerned a little bit because you got so much youth in that room and you got so much new bodies in that room. But remember, Al Golden's back, right, as the defensive coordinator. The best linebacker play we've seen over the course of the past decade for Cincinnati was when Al Golden was calling the shots in that room. So I have a lot of reason to believe it's going to really take a step in the right direction if Logan Wilson is healthy and playing like he was in 21 and 22. Also have a mailbag coming your guys' way here on today's show. Make sure you use hashtag Bengals or Super Chat to be a part of the mailbag. And appreciate the Sky Warrior for 2 of his Super Chats that have already come in here on today's live show. But if you don't use hashtag Bengals, my guy Chris Daughtry will not be able to filter through all the comments and find what you said. So help us out. Use that hashtag Bengals to get in on our mailbag. And you don't have to wait till we do the mailbag. That'll be our 3rd segment here on today's show. You can get them in now and get ahead of the game. Get those questions in. I see my guy CWT already doing that, so really appreciate you, CWT. If you are ready for today's live show to get underway, drop a like for us if you haven't done so already. Got 16 likes here. Got about 60-some people here watching, so help us out at that thumbs up icon. Something you should do for all of our videos here at Bengals Breakdown. We really do appreciate it. Bosses certainly appreciate it as well. And obviously, we're always trying to drive our metrics home a little bit here so we can continue to grow our channel here at Bengals Breakdown. Obviously, like I mentioned, these next couple of months in a bit of a lull, but we still have a lot of growth opportunities. So it really helps us out if you hit that sub button, obviously, if you haven't done so already, and hit that thumbs up icon for all of our videos here as well. I'm going to take a sip of water here, and then I'll tell you what we got on tap for today's live show. All right, coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown, we got the latest Bengals news and rumors. We're talking Dax Hill, fifth-year option being exercised by Cincinnati. We're talking Zack Moss, his new restructured deal, and also some rumors that have come out about what exactly was transpiring with Shemar Stewart on draft night. Don't want to miss that. Also, my first 53-man roster projection for the Cincinnati Bengals following the NFL Draft. Obviously, the Bengals got 90 guys. Right now, that's got to get trimmed down significantly over the course of the next few months, and we will have our first projection for you as our second segment. As I mentioned, live mailbag segment 3. Make sure you get those questions in, hashtag Bengals, or skip the line altogether with a super chat. Closing out today's show, we had a video already talking about the Bengals UDFA. It's going to give some grades for those UDFAs as well. Don't be surprised if one or two of them happen to make this team for Cincinnati. It's all coming up live here on Bengals Breakdown. What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we're going to spend some time talking about Shemar Stewart, obviously Cincinnati's pick at number 17 overall in the first round. Some draft rumors have kind of circulated in regards to Shemar Stewart after the NFL draft has obviously taken place. Going to be spending some time talking about that. Also, some Dax Hill conversation. A couple of days ago, we talked about Cincinnati exercising his fifth-year option. Going to dive into that a little bit more and have my thoughts on that. And also, Zack Moss has a new restructured contract. Going to be breaking down those details here on today's show as well. Now, if you are ready for the 2025 season to start, obviously a ways away, but if you're ready, like the show for me right now. I know we're all fired up here post-draft. Team looks like it's heading in the right direction, particularly on the offensive side of the football. If you are hyped and you are ready for that 2025 NFL season, like today's video for me right now. All right, so we got some rumors circulating about the Lions trying to trade up for Shemar Stewart on draft night. Obviously, the Lions had a very successful regular season and picked later on in the first round. And there's been some talk that, hey, they were trying to move up either with Cincinnati or ahead of Cincinnati to snag a guy in which they believe to be a star pass rusher in the NFL in Shemar Stewart. Mike Payton of A to Z Sports does a nice job of breaking this down. Let's get into what exactly Payton had to write for A to Z Sports. He said, I think the Lions tried to trade up for Texas A&M edge rusher Shemar Stewart on Thursday night. And this is what Brad Holmes had to say. Of course, Brad Holmes is the Detroit Lions general manager. He said, I don't need to get into specifics, but there were times we made attempts to get one. You just, they get picked before and you couldn't get up. It takes two to trade. And Mike Payton of A to Z Sports followed that up by saying this. So there's the proof that the Lions attempted to trade up for one. Why do we think it was Stewart? It's all based on the top 30 visits. The Lions really seem to love picking the guys they have in those visits. TeSlaa and Tyleik Williams are more proof of that. We'll probably find Tate, Ratledge, and Miles Frazier came in too at some point. The Lions had just 3 edge rushers in for 30 visits, and only one of them was a first-round guy. That was Stewart. He wound up going 17th to the Cincinnati Bengals. You've had a couple of days here to digest the pick and really think it through, right? Kind of calm down a little bit after the NFL draft. I've asked you this question before, but I'm asking it to you guys again. Grade the Shemar Stewart pick for me in the comment section of today's show, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know. It is the pinned comment of today's video, so if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. You could ignore it, take advantage of it down in the comments. Let us know what you think. The further we get away from the draft, the more I like this selection for the Cincinnati Bengals. If you were tuned in with any of our coverage, obviously it was on-demand videos, not any live coverage during the NFL draft. But as the pick went down, I had my concerns with the pick, right? But as we get further away, I'm starting to fall in love a little bit more with this selection from Duke Tobin, Zach Taylor, and company. As we could tell after that report there from A to Z Sports, lots of teams had interest in Shemar Stewart. And you hear people talking around the league. I don't think Detroit was the only team that was sitting there considering, either taking Shemar Stewart 1 or moving up to get him. There were some rumblings that, hey, San Francisco thought about taking him. Obviously, they went with Mykel Williams instead. Other teams picking inside the top 10 had some, pondered taking Shemar Stewart in the draft. Now, it's still very risky. All right, let's all be very clear here. We've talked about the production at length, or lack thereof, I should say, from Shemar Stewart during his time in College Station. And obviously Cincinnati on the defensive side of the ball, they need their first-round pick to come in and contribute immediately. We all know how god-awful the defense was last season, but the upside really is appealing. I mean, you got people just talking that really know their stuff, really know ball, talking about Shemar Stewart, saying, like, this could be, I hate the phrase generational talent, but I'm going to drop it right here, a generational talent type guy for the Cincinnati Bengals, right? And, freak athlete. We talked about it at length when we were down at the Combine in Indianapolis. People were absolutely raving about his traits, his skill, his size, his speed. Production wasn't there. Can Al Golden and this defensive staff get the most out of him? And, again, this can't be something where it's like, oh, yeah, they got it out of him, but it took 3 years. No, it's got to take a couple of months. And, with the uncertainty around Trey Hendrickson, the fact that, hey, he's probably going to hold out of training camp when that rolls around here in a couple of months, he's going to have a lot of opportunity to get a lot of reps. Hopefully he can make the most of it. Hopefully he can grow enough to be able to have an impact on this team in 2025. We'll continue their show here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that Bengals draft hats are still available. Obviously, the draft is in the rearview mirror. That doesn't mean you can't get some Cincinnati Bengals draft hats courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. The ones they had this year, really for all the teams in the NFL, really did a tremendous job this year, and those are still available. That's chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats, and we will put that in the comment section and the description of today's show. All right, let's talk Dax Hill on today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. Broke it down a couple of days ago, letting everybody know, hey, the Bengals are exercising the fifth-year option of Dax Hill, which, by the way, I believe to totally be the right call. I think this is the right move from Duke Tobin and the Cincinnati Bengals personnel staff, saying, you know what, we're going to bring him back. We're going to guarantee his contract over the next 2 years and hopefully keep him in Cincinnati for the long term. And Zach Taylor spoke about that the other day. As far as Dax Hill, who he is as a player, and what this means for the football team, saying, I'm really excited about Dax's future. We see an ascending player who attacks each day the right way. I can't wait to see him back on the field making plays for us this season. Another opportunity, you guys get involved here with our show at Bengals Breakdown. Are you happy the Bengals are exercising Hill's option? Let me know. Be honest with me. Type Y for yes or N for no. Obviously, Dax Hill did not play a ton in 2024. We heard Duke Tobin at the Combine say, man, he really was getting ready to erupt before this injury. And if you watched the first 5 games of the season, you really saw a guy that was settling back in as a cornerback. Obviously, when Cincinnati took him in 2022, they took him as a safety, and he did that for a couple of years, and it was kind of like, okay. And then they asked him, you know what, we're going to need you to get back to that cornerback spot and start guarding guys on the outside. And he was doing a tremendous job of that. By exercising this fifth-year option, that shows you that Cincinnati believes that he is their best young DB, and they believe he can be a guy that can take their defense to the next level. I've said here on this show in the past, Dax Hill doesn't get hurt, you might make the playoffs. And that's kind of a bold statement to make because it's just one player that, hadn't really proven a lot until the season started in 2024. And I thought he really was taking steps in the right direction, really doing a great job in coverage, being in the right places at the right time, and also was a very willing tackler, which I think is very important out of any cornerback in the National Football League. And I thought Hill was doing a tremendous job of that, albeit in a small sample size, before that season-ending injury. I thought now would be a good time to kind of look back in the past and see what Cincinnati has done here of late over the last decade or so with recent guys that they drafted in the first round and what they did with their fifth-year options. Hills obviously has been exercised. Now, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, both those guys reached extensions before they had to play on that option, and rightfully so. That was well done by the Bengals front office. Jonah Williams, of course, is no longer with the Cincinnati Bengals, but that was exercised. Billy Price, what a disaster that was. That was declined. Good call there. And an even bigger disaster, John Ross. In 2017, that was declined. William Jackson III, that was exercised. Cedric Ogbuehi, that was declined. And then Darquez Denard was exercised. And also Tyler Eifert was exercised as well at that tight end spot for Cincinnati. So that's a bit of a look in the rearview mirror what Cincinnati has done over the past 10 years or so. Let's transition here to talk Zack Moss. Obviously, a couple of days ago, it was made clear or a couple of weeks ago, I should say, that Zack Moss is going to be back with this football team. There was a lot of uncertainty there, and I think that was probably why, there was concern about, Cincinnati really needs to allocate kind of a top-of-the-end resource of trying to get another running back. And then it was like, Zack Moss is coming back. And we have some details here on what exactly his contract is going to look like. 1 year, 1.7 is the restructured contract, includes $375,000 guaranteed. That is significantly less than he was previously scheduled to earn. It was supposed to be just under $3.5 million in 2025. Cincinnati picks up $1.7 million of cap space because of the move. And that's Spotrac doing a great job breaking that down for us. And I'm really excited for Zack Moss, right? He suffered that neck injury. It happened during practice. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, he just, a little bit of an injury. We'll see him in a couple weeks. No, it was a very, very serious injury for Zack Moss, and there were people around the team questioning whether or not this guy would be able to play football in 2025. So the fact that Cincinnati is signing him to a deal shows you, A, that he's going to be healthy enough to go out there and be productive for this football team and be able to have an impact as well. And then you add Taj Brooks in the 6th round. You add Samaje Perine in free agency, and obviously you have a bona fide RB1 in Chase Brown. So I think Bengals, as things sit right now, they really have a good running back room, and it was rounded out in the draft. But plenty of excitement that Zack Moss is going to be coming back, and a very, very team-friendly deal that's going to save the Bengals some money against the cap. Make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Our next goal here is 19,000 subscribers here on the channel, which we are rapidly approaching. Help us out. Also help yourself out by hitting that sub button right now. What's your confidence level in Cincinnati's linebacker room? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section of today's show. Scale it for us, 1 to 10. Brock says 4 running backs, no offensive guards. Well, of course, they did pick Dylan Fairchild there, Brock, who's going to come in and be this team's starter at left guard. And Jalen Rivers, also a guy they pick in the 5th round out of Miami that's going to have some versatility to play all along the offensive line there as well. So maybe not the way you or me or a lot of people wanted to address the guard position, but they did address it, and they deserve some credit for that. And I think they really got a good player in Dylan Fairchild in round 3. I see a 7.5. I see an 8. See another 8. I like it. People having confidence in this room. My confidence stems from Al Golden, and that's going to be kind of a reoccurring theme here. Bengals are putting a lot on Al Golden's plate here this season. A lot of personnel that's being brought back that was on the team last year when the defense stunk, right? Those guys are coming back. They need to play better. That's on Al Golden's plate. Lots of guys getting drafted on the defensive side of the ball at that linebacker position. 2 guys, 2 linebackers. That's Al Golden's, it's his forte, right? Linebacker play. So a lot is on his plate, and hopefully he can deliver for the Cincinnati Bengals football team and make this a formidable defense. And you'll see a lot of playoff wins if that is able to happen. All right, next segment coming your guys' way here on today's show is a Bengals 53-man roster projection. So really looking forward to diving into that. What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, it is my first 53-man roster projection for the Cincinnati Bengals after the 2025 NFL Draft. Obviously, you got 90-plus guys on the roster right now. That's got to get whittled down significantly over the course of the next few months. Got a long ways away before training camp and the preseason, obviously, but this is my first crack at putting together Cincinnati's first 53-man roster. Make sure you stay tuned throughout the entirety of today's show. Don't miss any Cincinnati Bengals news, rumors, all of it. We've got it covered here at the channel. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Our next goal here at the channel is 19,000 subscribers. And we are rapidly approaching that mark, and obviously 20K is just right around the corner from that. So some big things coming here at Bengals Breakdown. You don't want to miss any of our coverage, any of our content. Help us out. Help yourself out as well by hitting that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Start with the quarterback. This one's easy. Very easy, right? Joe Burrow, QB1, best quarterback in the National Football League. Book it. Jake Browning slides in at that backup spot. You might be thinking, well, UDFA, Payton Thorne. No, all right, that's not happening. You're in a spot with, if you're going to challenge Jake Browning for that backup job, they would have allocated a draft pick to that position. They didn't do that. That would have been silly of them to do that. Logan Woodside and Peyton Thorne will compete for that, QB3 spot on the practice squad, and I fully anticipate Logan Woodside wins that battle. But quarterback room, very straightforward. Running back starts to get a little more interesting here for the Cincinnati Bengals. How many guys are you going to keep? Last year they kept 3 guys, right? And this year I've got Cincinnati keeping 4 guys. Chase Brown, he is your bona fide running back 1. Samaje Perine, obviously you brought him in from Kansas City. He's going to be your third down back, right? I don't expect his role, by the way, to be as big as it was when he went on that Super Bowl run a couple of years ago, but he will have a role, make no mistake about it. Zack Moss, news coming in recently that he's going to be back with this football team. Team-friendly deal. Great that he's going to be back playing football at the professional level, and then you allocated a resource in Taj Brooks in the 6th round. He absolutely is going to make the football team. When you're talking about guys on the outside looking in, you're talking about Gary Brightwell, right? Kendall Milton, who I really like out of Georgia, was a rookie this past year. Look for him to be a practice squad guy. And then Quayle Conley, you brought him in as a UDFA here in this 2025 class. Those guys on the outside looking in. Pin comment time here on today's show. How many running backs do you think Cincinnati will keep? All 4 guys that I listed, I'm pretty confident all 4 of those guys are going to make this football team. But again, they only took 3 last year, so there's some flexibility there in terms of what they do. Let me know. Get a number for me down in the comments. How many running backs will Cincinnati keep in 2025? All right, Cincinnati's going to keep 6 receivers. I thought about just kind of starting out here and going with 5. And then adding another position somewhere else. But I figured, try to make this as accurate as possible. Your 3 guys on the left here, there's obviously no controversy there. Chase, Higgins, and Yoshi all going to be back in 2025. And then you got Jermaine Burton. That is the real wild card. Look, most organizations would have cut him, would have moved on from him. Cincinnati did not do that. They did not draft another wide receiver, and they did not add a veteran free agent wide receiver as well. So that tells me they're giving him a second chance, despite the 2 evictions, despite the assault claims from people in the city of Cincinnati. All the turmoil that was around Jermaine Burton appears as though he's going to have an opportunity here throughout the offseason to play his way onto this football team. It's risky. Obviously, you allocated a 3rd-round pick to him a couple of years ago. I've got him making this football team. Charlie Jones, he's been hurt basically these 2 years that he's been here. Really love him as a punt returner. Haven't really seen him do much as a receiver. Then this is the wild card here. Isaiah Williams, he did a great job filling in for Charlie Jones at that punt return spot in 2024. Will he make this team? I don't know, because you have a solid UDFA class at that wide receiver position. I'm really high on Jordan Moore. The Bengals have shown Troy Walters at that wide receiver coach position has shown that he can develop these guys, and some of these UDFAs can really contribute to the active roster. And you also have Cole Burgess, a guy I'm really high on, who was a UDFA last year, and Kendrick Pryor obviously has been here for a few years as well. Wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys plays their way onto the roster and takes the last spot from Isaiah Williams. Tight end room, only going with 4 guys here. I am leaving a guy out. I'm sure it is very obvious for you to figure out who that is, but Gesicki, Sample, they're locked in. Gesicki's back. Awesome job by Cincinnati in free agency, making sure that he returns to this football team. Sample had the best year of his career in 2024. He's a real blocking tight end, right? Cam Grandy earned himself another contract. He really was tremendous in a limited role. And then I've got Tanner Hudson here as that tight end 4, with Cincinnati only keeping 4 tight ends here. Tanner McLaughlin, he was your 6th-round pick out of Arizona in 2024. I was super high on him when the Bengals drafted him. And, the personnel team decided that they were going to stick him around on the roster this past year. We never really saw him. We never called his name, right? So he's going to have an opportunity to take that 4th spot from Tanner Hudson, or maybe they take 5, not out of the realm of possibilities there whatsoever. But Eric All Jr. obviously is going to miss the entirety of the 2025 season. And then Cole Taylor, a guy that you brought in as a UDFA from West Virginia, is not going to find his way onto the roster. Offensive line here for the Cincinnati Bengals, I have them taking 9 offensive linemen here. Orlando Brown Jr., Dylan Fairchild, Ted Karras, Lucas Patrick, and Amarius Mims. That's my starting projection for what the offensive line looks like in week 1. And then I've got Cody Ford, Matt Lee. I've got Cordell Volson making the team. Obviously, he has a pretty high price number on his head, so Cincinnati would save a lot of money if they were to cut him and bring him back at a lower rate. But I'm banking on Scott Peters getting the most out of Cordell Volson, and I think he makes this team despite being owed over $3 million. And then Jalen Rivers, your 5th-round pick out of Miami. He's going to make the team as well. I've got Cincinnati only taking 9 offensive linemen in this first roster projection. Again, we are approaching 19,000 subscribers, less than 400 away from making that happen. We will be here throughout the entirety of the offseason. Still have plenty of stuff to talk about and plenty of things to cover. Don't miss out on any of our coverage. Help us out. Hit that sub button right now. Let's transition to the defensive side of the football here, and we'll start with that linebacker position. Logan Wilson is going to be really spearheading that group for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm really looking forward to watching him play and lead this football team in 2025. Obviously, Jermaine Pratt is not on this list. He's going to be released in a matter of days. Shoot, by the time this video is out, maybe he will have been released by then. But then you got your 2 draft picks, Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter. Demetrius Knight Jr. has to be a hit. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Him and Shemar Stewart, we'll get to him later. Demetrius Knight has to be a hit. Older guy, played a lot of college football, spent his last year at South Carolina. Al Golden's got to get him ready to go. Barrett Carter, your 4th-round pick out of Clemson a couple of rounds later. Oren Burks, kind of a wild card in this room, who you brought in from Philadelphia. He was tremendous for the Eagles in their Super Bowl run this past year. And then Muma Jong-Meda, who played his way onto the roster last year as a UDFA. He's going to be back with this Cincinnati Bengals football team. I absolutely love him and his versatility, what he can do on special teams as well. Muma Jong-Meda, don't be surprised if some things don't go, particularly well for those 2 rookies, and Jong-Meda ends up getting a little bit more playing time than maybe you expected. What's your confidence level in the Bengals linebacker room? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Scale it for me. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let's get to that cornerback spot here. Cincinnati typically takes 6 guys in that room, and really no surprises here across the board for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cam Taylor-Britt, he's going to be back. Really struggled this past year for the Cincinnati Bengals in coverage. Made a lot of mental mistakes. Hopefully Al Golden and company can get that cleaned up, because really Cincinnati looks at him as kind of, the CB1. We'll see how Dax Hill looks when he comes back, but Bengals really don't have a clear-cut cornerback 1 here. DJ Turner was coming along before he fractured his clavicle on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. Josh Newton, rookie last year, he kind of got picked on a little bit, but I do feel pretty good about him moving inside of that nickel spot, taking over for Mike Hilton. DJ Ivey, really love him. 7th-round pick a couple of years ago out of Miami, and really like him in his game, and really I thought he did some good stuff for the Bengals, particularly on 3rd down. Same with Marco Wilson as well. The Bengals bringing him back in free agency. I don't view any of the guys that aren't on this board really as candidates to challenge any of these guys for a spot on the roster. Obviously, you got Micah Abraham. He's been around for a couple of years. Nate Brooks, who I'm really high on, he had some stints in the XFL before landing with Cincinnati this past year. He's a good football player, but don't think he's going to challenge any of these 6 guys. Jalen Davis, who's made your team in the past at that nickel spot. Perhaps maybe he works his way onto the roster if Josh Newton does not develop how the coaches are hoping. Lance Robinson and, of course, a UDFA, the only corner UDFA you brought in, Braylon Lux out of Texas Tech. Let's talk safety here on today's show. Really, at this point, after free agency and the draft, I view this to be the weakest part of your football team. This area really caused you a lot of concerns last year, and you didn't address it whatsoever. Literally did nothing to address it. Geno Stone, the Bengals are kind of banking on the rebirth of Geno Stone. You saw him play well down the stretch last year, but you were playing below-average quarterbacks and below-average football teams for the most part, apart from the Denver Broncos. Hopefully, Geno Stone can get back to that form that we saw when he was in Baltimore a couple of years ago, picking on the Bengals. Ironically, Jordan Battle started out a little shaky. He transitioned into playing some good football as well. I still have a lot of hope for Jordan Battle to be a solid football player. Tyson Anderson, one of my favorite guys on the team. He's your special teams ace, right? And we kind of talk about, that you had so much struggle at safety last year, and you never really saw Tyson Anderson inserted into that defensive lineup. Maybe that changes this year if things don't go well for Stone/Battle. Dejon Anthony, your 7th-round pick last year out of Ole Miss, also projected to make this room. Other guys that aren't, P.J. Jules, right? He was a UDFA last year. He's probably going to be a practice squad guy again. And Jalen Key as well. Spent some time playing at Alabama. You have him now. maybe he makes the team over a Dejon Anthony, but probably not, considering Anthony made the team last year. Defensive line here. I got Cincinnati taking 10 of these guys, and then we'll get to some specialists here on today's show. I got Henderson in there. Obviously, there's uncertainty. Is he going to show up? What's going to happen with him? At this point, as we sit here on the last, filming this on the last day of April, put him in that defensive line room. TJ Slaton, probably my favorite free agent acquisition for the Cincinnati Bengals. Most recently played with Green Bay. He is going to be a significant upgrade from Sheldon Rankins at that nose tackle spot. BJ Hill's back. Kind of surprising that Cincinnati opted to re-sign him, but good for him. Good to have BJ back on the football team. Hopefully he can improve and bounce back a little bit. Miles Murphy, former first-round pick. It's now or never for Miles Murphy. We'll see if he can show up and show out in 2025. Osai is back on a one-year prove-it deal for Cincinnati. That also, to me, was a bit of a surprise. And you got Shemar Stewart, who Cincinnati obviously needs to make a significant impact right away. Cam Sample coming back after that serious injury. I believe it was an Achilles. He popped. Cam Sample is another one of those guys that I say, shoot, if the Bengals had Cam Sample on defense last year, maybe things aren't so bad on that side of the football. McKinley Jackson will enter year 2. Really excited kind of for that rotation between him and TJ Slaton at that nose tackle spot. Chris Jenkins Jr. certainly showed some flashes out of Michigan this past year. Cedric Johnson, 6th-round pick out of Ole Miss in 2024. I really like Cedric Johnson, and in limited playing time last year, he played really, really well. There's some people that believe that a guy like Howard Cross Jr., who is a UDFA, could perhaps play his way onto this roster. I don't know exactly who he would take a spot from. You also have Eric Gregory, another UDFA out of Arkansas that could potentially challenge one of these guys for a spot as well. 3 specialists to round out today's show. Evan McPherson is going to be back. Obviously missed the last chunk of the season with that hamstring injury. He's going to be back. He's going to be the kicker. Hopefully he can get back to where he was in 2021 when Cincinnati went on that Super Bowl run, and he really, that year, was the best kicker in the National Football League. Has been far from it the past 2 seasons. Ryan Rico had an impressive rookie campaign from a punting perspective. Hopefully from a holding perspective, things get a little cleaner. Cal Adamitis is still my projection at that long snapper spot, but kind of a position. I get it's long snapper. Nobody really cares. But William Wagner, UDFA out of Michigan. A lot of people think that he was one of the best long snappers in college football last year. The Bengals are bringing him in, and I do think it will be an open competition between Wagner and Adamitis. If you made it to the end of today's show, you are a real one, and we appreciate you. Show your love for us by hitting that thumbs up icon right now. Mailbag time here on Bengals Breakdown. Get your questions in. Hashtag Bengals or Super Chat. Just skip the line altogether. I've seen a couple of hashtag Bengals questions here in the chat. Al Golden's Burner says we should have let BJ walk. Not going to lie, that kind of was my thought process. Again, BJ Hill, Bengals legend, I think, has done some good things for this football team, but kind of felt like, it was time to just move on. But they're bringing it back, so obviously I'm going to cheer for him. I'm going to pull for him, but he's got to be better than he was this past season at that spot. Master, some kind words saying he appreciates me and what we do. My guy Chris as well. Appreciate you, Master, for helping us out here, showing some love in the comments section. What else we got here? See a couple of hashtag Bengals questions in here. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's unfortunate with Eric All, man. Boy, did he look good in the few games that he was able to play before getting hurt. The coaching staff trusted the heck out of him already. So early into his career. I mean, you saw him kind of in that fullback role, kind of putting his hand in the dirt there when they did some I formation stuff, and then he would line him up as a receiver, and obviously hand in the dirt there as well, run out for passes, do a great job. Burrow clearly trusted him, so hopefully he can get back to full health here and be ready to go in 2026. All right, make sure you get your questions in. Hashtag Bengals or Super Chat to skip the line altogether, and we'll get right into today's mailbag. Before we get into today's mailbag, make sure you guys share today's video for me on social media if you haven't done so already. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. It works for us here at Bengals Breakdown. We're just trying to get some people that are Bengals fans but aren't necessarily tapped in to what we're doing here at Bengals Breakdown, trying to bring them along, get them interactive with our show, and subscribe to our show as well. So help me out and share today's video for me right now. $2 super chat here from the Sky Warrior. Appreciate that from the Sky Warrior, saying, how many sacks will Joe Burrow take this year? Good question. I really don't have a number that comes to mind, but I will say this. Some of the sacks that he takes are his fault, and that's okay. That's the way he plays the game. He's going to hold on to that ball until the last possible second trying to make a play. So some of those sacks, a lot of people, always crush the Bengals offensive line. Trust me, they deserve a lot of criticism, but sometimes it's, Burrow trying to extend, hold on to that ball, and he takes some shots. Is that great for the longevity of his career? Probably not. But that's the way he plays the game, and he plays it at a really high elite level. Thought really last year was the best offensive line that he had played with during his time in the NFL. Hopefully it improves from 24 to 25. He takes less hits, and in situations where I thought he did a good job of that this past year. Situations where he didn't need to take shots, he didn't take shots. But, when you look around the league, he takes some absolutely wicked shots, and he pops right back up. My favorite thing about Joe Burrow, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, when he throws dimes, that's great too, but just the fact that he can just let go of the ball and take a freaking shot and then just pop right back up and be ready to go, I absolutely love it out of Joe Burrow. Hopefully he doesn't get sacked too many times this season. CWT, what's your biggest disappointment of this draft? Good question here from CWT. On draft night, the night of the first round, I probably would have said the first pick and Shemar Stewart, but I don't feel that way anymore. I've had some time to digest it, research it a little bit more. I'm starting to feel better about the Shemar Stewart pick. My biggest disappointment is not taking a safety. It's been, if you watch the show, I wanted Starks in the first round. Now he goes to Baltimore. You got to deal with Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks. That might present some issues for you for a stretch here in the AFC North, but I digress. Fourth round, Latham Ransom was sitting right there for you out of Ohio State. And then you take Barrett Carter. Hopefully that works out, right? Linebacker out of Clemson, double-dipped at that linebacker spot. Hopefully it works out. But then Ransom goes a couple of picks later to Carolina. I would say that probably is my biggest disappointment. But, really, when you look at Cincinnati, it's really the only thing you can be ticked off about based on free agency and the draft was that you didn't check the safety spot. They did a lot of good stuff this offseason. Hopefully it's enough to make them championship contenders in 25. Seth, will Jermaine Burton make the football team? Yeah, he's going to be given every opportunity to do so. Look, Cincinnati did not draft a wide receiver, and they did not bring in a veteran free agent. Obviously, there are several UDFA guys, I believe 3 UDFA wide receivers. Is that going to, mean that one of them can challenge him and take his spot? Probably not, unless he does something stupid again, which, with him, unfortunately, you never can tell if he's going to, clean up his act or not. 2 evictions as the assault, not charges, but accusations. And then just, missing practice, falling asleep in meetings, right? They held him back from the Pittsburgh trip, wasn't able to go on that. Just lots of unprofessional stuff there from Jermaine Burton in 24. But based on what Cincinnati did this whole offseason, they're going to give him another opportunity. It's up to him to take advantage of it. But right now, I think he'll be back with this football team. Let me know. What do you think? Will Jermaine Burton make this football team in 2025? Type Y for yes or N for no. Let me know in the comments of today's show. The edit zone, was this offseason enough to get our defense top 15? It's a good question. And that answer falls directly on the shoulders of Al Golden. From, a piece perspective, no. Right, because you ran it, you brought some guys back that weren't playing great for you. B.J. Hill, certainly one of them. Joseph Osai, another guy as well. And obviously you did use several draft picks on the defensive side of the football. So we'll see. From a moves perspective, player perspective, personnel perspective, I would say no. But I think I'm really banking on Al Golden. The Bengals are going all in. They are shoving their chips on Al Golden, and I'm doing the same. I'm really fired up about him taking over this Bengals defense. But I do want to make note, defense doesn't need to be top 15, right? Top 20, yeah, probably. But if they just don't absolutely stink, this team's going to make the playoffs. They absolutely stunk last year. Obviously, they missed out. Epic MX, who's your favorite UDFA that the Cincinnati Bengals signed? For me, it is Seth McLaughlin, who played at Alabama before finishing up his career at Ohio State. To me, he's a guy that if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, I believe he popped his Achilles. That's what cost him the remainder of the season for Ohio State. Chris has given me the yes on that. He would have gotten drafted, right? This was the best center in college football before he got hurt. Were there some snap issues at Alabama? Absolutely. But I look at Seth McLaughlin as a guy that don't know if he's going to be ready to go this year with that Achilles. And, he's a lineman. Obviously, there's some concerns there. But if he's able to get back to fully healthy, I think we will see him play for the Cincinnati Bengals at some point. I think he could be a very formidable offensive lineman for this football team. So if I had to pick one, I would go with Seth McLaughlin. Also like Jordan Moore a lot, the wide receiver out of Duke. Really hope he sticks around on the practice squad, and then obviously if somebody gets hurt, potentially has the ability to play for the Cincinnati Bengals. We will continue with our show here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that obviously the draft is in the rearview mirror. The draft is over. That's all right, because Bengals draft hats are still available and on sale now over at Fanatics. They've got some really cool ones this year. Really encourage you guys to go over to Fanatics and check that out. chatsports.com/Bengals draft hats, and we will put that link in the comment section and the description of today's show. The Sky Warrior, how many wins to get the 1 seed? Good question. I think, just kind of running through here with the AFC. Obviously, people are picking on Kansas City for their performance in the Super Bowl. They're going to be back. They're going to be okay. Are they going to be as good? Are they going to get as lucky in those one-score games? Probably not. But they're definitely going to be a team you got to go after. 17 games. I think you got to probably 13 or 14, I would say, to get that 1 seed. If the Bengals can get it one of these years, man, they're going to be lethal. Because think about the runs they've been on. They always have to go on the road, and they typically do well on the road, right? Do you win that the second AFC Championship in 22 when you had to go to Kansas City? Maybe, right? But if they can get one of these things at home throughout the whole entirety of the playoffs, that's going to be some good spell good things for Cincinnati. Obviously, in order for that to happen, you got to play well in September, something this team has never done under Zach Taylor. Cobra Kai Zone. Do you think Taj Brooks is running back 2? No, but I do like the pick a lot, and there may become a time where he does develop into running back 2 for this Bengals football team. Look, the value of Taj Brooks is so much higher than where Cincinnati acquired him in the draft in the 6th round. This is a guy that really rounds out this running back room for 2025. And as we go on into the future, he very well could skyrocket up that depth chart. You never know how long, Samaje Perine's going to be here. Obviously, Zack Moss is back on a 1-year deal, so he very well could be that RB2 in 2026. But I'm really looking forward to watching him play in the preseason. I think he's going to have a great career here in Cincinnati. I'm really excited that the Bengals were able to land him in the 6th round. Willie B says, favorite Bengals draft pick. For me, my favorite pick definitely is Dylan Fairchild in the 3rd round out of Georgia. It was a position of need, right? You opted not to take interior offensive linemen in the first 2 rounds, which I'm okay with that. And you had to take one there in round 3, and you did it, and you had a really good player in Dylan Fairchild. There's a lot of people that say that, the value doesn't exactly meet where you picked him. I kind of disagree with that. I think he's a really good offensive lineman. I think he's going to come in from day one and be your starting left guard. I think he's going to do a great job of protecting Joe Burrow. Obviously, there is that chemistry already built in with Amarius Mims as the 2 were teammates at Georgia. But this is a really tough dude, really physical guy, and he's got some true cowboy strength out there playing interior offensive line. And I'm really excited for Dylan Fairchild. I would say he is my favorite pick. And then Taj Brooks would probably be my next favorite pick, that running back in the 6th round. I want to hear from you guys. Who is your favorite Bengals draft pick? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Colin, are you worried about the Ravens getting Starks and Mike Green? Yeah, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I am a little bit worried about that. And really, not necessarily about, Cincinnati not being able to score on Baltimore, but we know Baltimore can score at will against Cincinnati, right? Think about the two games this past year, just two absolute shootouts, two games that you had won, and you ended up losing both of them. I won't go on a rant about that, but yeah, I mean, Baltimore gets two top-of-the-line picks, and obviously Mike Green wasn't even a first-round guy. He slipped, some of the off-the-field stuff with Mike Green. We'll see if anything else turns up from that, but obviously that scared a lot of teams away. But as far as a player goes, that is a steal for Baltimore, and I was really worried that they were going to land Malachi Starks, and that's just an incredible duo at that safety position with Starks and Kyle Hamilton. I'm concerned about Baltimore. I think you're always concerned about Baltimore, but I'll still bet on us every time against them as well. If you are enjoying this Bengals mailbag, you are in luck because we got more of them coming your guys' way. Don't miss out on any future Bengals mailbags. Hit that sub button for me right now. Dr. B, who will start, Demetrius Knight or Barrett Carter? Demetrius Knight will start. We'll see. I'm not going to, I've mentioned this before. I don't know a ton about Barrett Carter. I know, Clemson guy, obviously was a highly rated recruit coming in. People expected him to kind of burst onto the scene. But they picked Demetrius Knight to be that starter alongside Logan Wilson. I think he will be. And I would argue that's maybe the most important pick Cincinnati made in this past draft. They kind of took a bit of a flyer. I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but you took a little risk taking Shemar Stewart at 17 overall. You have to hit this Demetrius Knight pick out of the park. Al Golden loves him. Al Golden wanted him. Al Golden got him. Hopefully Al Golden can develop him into a starting linebacker alongside Wilson. Who is your favorite Bengals undrafted free agent? I thought we were still in the cut there for a second, Chris. I thought we were still going there. Regardless, let me know. Bengals signed 13 of them. We're going to be giving grades to them here as well as our final segment here on today's show. So let me know. I stopped reading it. I didn't even read it because I figured it was something like that. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's hilarious. When I saw it was long and I knew it was one of the ones you did, I said, that's Willie B. Let's see. We'll filter through some of these. Brandon, appreciate the love, my friend. Yeah, I mean, look, there's no reason as a fan base for anybody to, continue to be upset about the pick. Yeah, you can be upset on draft night, but the pick's been made, right? Got to support him. Hopefully it works out as the ceiling is through the roof, quite literally, in terms of what his potential is. Dr. B says Seth McLaughlin. I'm with you. Out of all these guys, I think that he could potentially have the biggest role. Maybe not in 2025, but just at some point. Howard Cross, another one. Just happy we got one of those Notre Dame guys, right? I think a lot of us were hoping it was Xavier Watts, right, when the Bengals were drafting. A couple opportunities to pick Xavier Watts, but Cincinnati said, you know what? We're going to roll with Geno Stone and Jordan Battle. We're going to do that again. We'll see if that was a mistake, like I think, or if they're going to outfox us with that move. Didn't get to this one on the mailbag, but the Sky Warrior says, will Zach Taylor be fired if the Bengals miss the playoffs? I got, pretty fired up when people were calling for his job earlier in this past year. What I'll say is I won't defend him like I was if they miss the playoffs again, but I don't think they'll fire him, right? I mean, shoot, how long was Marvin Lewis here? How many playoff wins did he have? None. How many Zach Taylor have? A lot. So I don't think they will, but I'll at least welcome that criticism and those comments, obviously, if they miss the playoffs. But hopefully we don't get to that point. Good question from Adam. I don't know. As far as how often is Shemar going to play? I think if he's out there and he's not playing a lot, that's going to mean that he's not ready. And that was the big concern. Taking a guy that wasn't going to be ready to contribute. So they'll let you know by the snap counts how ready he is. But I hope that he can, play over Osai, right? I hope him and Trey Hendrickson can go at it and rush the passer. But I don't know. I mean, he's definitely not going to be out there for every snap. That's not really the type of player he is. But in those obvious pass rush situations, I hope to see him out there as the first-round pick at 17 overall. Bengals have a couple of months here to get him ready to rock. Do you think the Bengals will sign any more free agents? I don't know. We'll do a future video. There is still like 7 or 8 safeties out there that have played good football that are still available. We're going to break that down in a future video. But really, that's kind of the only position that I think they would make a move is safety. And shoot, I've been saying that ever since the past season wrapped, and they haven't addressed it. So I don't know. But really, safety is probably the only thing, or if something happens with Burton, to go get another wide receiver. But feels like they're going to roll with Jermaine Burton here. All right, we will get into our final segment here on today's show. We broke down the Cincinnati Bengals 2025 UDFA class, but we're going to be providing some grades for that class here on today's show. So without further ado, we will get into our final segment here of Bengals Breakdown. You are watching Bengals Breakdown by Chat Sports, and I am your host, Stone Shields. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be breaking down some UDFA grades for the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, we have broken down this class in a past video, but we're going to be giving some grades to all these guys as well. We did it for draft. Might as well do it for UDFAs here as well. Lots of the channels here at Chat Sports are making that happen. Cincinnati signed 13 of them this year, and there are going to be some that have a chance to make the team. Obviously, last year, Mumajong Meda, he was a UDFA. What did he do? He made the team for Cincinnati, was up the whole year, and really had a significant impact as far as the UDFA goes for the Cincinnati Bengals football team. Now, I will say, these UDFAs, there's very little guaranteed money. So in this grade show that we're going to do here, the lowest you can get is a B. So it's going to be B, B+, B-, A-, A+. That's really kind of the scale we are working with here because it's not going to cost anything for Cincinnati. Even if one of these guys is a complete whiff, it's really not the end of the world. Let me know, how many UDFAs do you think make the Bengals roster? I do think there probably will be at least one. You know, obviously last year, as I mentioned, was Mumajong Meda. I feel like there will at least be one again. Let me know how many you think will make this team. Starting off with my favorite one, that is Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State. Obviously played at Alabama before finishing his collegiate career with the Ohio State Buckeyes. And look, before he popped his Achilles, he was the best center in college football. He's a tough dude. And obviously in the past had some trouble with some snaps when he was playing with Jalen Milroe. That got cleaned up during his time in Columbus. And this is a guy that I mocked to Cincinnati previously, right? I think I had him as a 7th rounder in one of my final mock drafts here. He ends up going undrafted in large part or 100% because of that Achilles injury. He would have got drafted if he was not hurt. But I don't know exactly what his timeline looks like, whether or not he will be a guy that is ready to play football in 2025, or if he's going to need some time to kind of get back into the swing of things. But I think the Bengals are going to want to keep Seth McLaughlin around, and I view him as a guy probably not this year in 2025, but beyond that, like 2026, I think he could be a guy that could come in and play football for this team. As I mentioned, he's a really tough dude. There's a clip in the SEC Championship a couple of years ago where there's these 2 massive Georgia pass rushers coming at him, and he's knocking them both down, doing a tremendous job. So he's a tough dude, and I think he's going to have a career in the NFL if he can get back to where he was pre-injury. Pin comment time here on today's show. Grade the Bengals UDFA class. I want to know what you guys think. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments of today's show. If that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. You can ignore it, take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Braylon Lux here out of Texas Tech, the lone cornerback that Cincinnati took in this UDFA class. He was a guy that, I really expected Cincinnati to go out there and probably try to get a cornerback in some capacity, either through the draft or in free agency, and they didn't. They didn't address that position at all. So they brought in a guy like Braylon Lux here, adds some depth to that room, but I don't anticipate him being a guy that sticks around. We'll see if he is a practice squad guy or not. Howard Cross III here, probably my second favorite behind McLaughlin, probably second or third favorite behind McLaughlin, another guy we'll talk about later on today's show. Defensive tackle out of Notre Dame, obviously has that experience with Al Golden. I really wanted Cincinnati to bring in one of those Notre Dame guys. This guy has played a ton of football. He was a 6-year senior and played a ton of games for the Fighting Irish. He's a tough dude. His dad played in the NFL. He's a guy that I could see, carving him out a spot, potentially making this football team. If you said I had to pick one guy that would make the football team out of all these UDFAs, I probably would say Howard Cross III. Caleb Etienne, offensive tackle out of BYU. The way I look at it is if you can get some more bodies into that room, right, at that offensive tackle room, maybe somebody pops, right? You always see that across the league. There's several offensive linemen that were undrafted guys, and, they settle down in training camp and they do really well. Next thing they know, they're on the team, and they're playing winning football. And Caleb Etienne, he could be that guy. I'm giving that an A- grade here for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll see if he is a practice squad guy or what kind of role he carves out for himself. Cole Taylor here, tight end out of West Virginia, giving him a B+. By the way, I don't know if I actually mentioned it, but I went A+ for the McLaughlin and an A for Braylon Lux and an A+ for Howard Cross III. It was there on the graphic, but not exactly sure if I made that clear or not. But Cole Taylor going B+ here. Look, Cincinnati didn't need to do much in that tight end room. It is good to have another body in there. I think the way your room is structured right now, it's really in a good spot. This is a guy that had a solid career and really had a solid final year there at West Virginia, and I'm giving that a B+ grade. Jordan Moore, when I said second favorite guy, this is probably my second favorite guy. Jordan Moore out of Duke. This guy played a lot of college football. He's a real cerebral guy, always in the right spot at the right time. He knows ball. He knows where he's supposed to be. He's a reliable guy. Played a ton of football at Duke. The coaches are going to absolutely love him, giving this an A+ grade for the Cincinnati Bengals. And he's just kind of the patent Bengals practice squad receiver to me. I really hope he sticks around as on the practice squad, and I definitely could see him in a situation where his number gets caught upon if somebody gets hurt. Another wide receiver here, a couple that the Bengals are bringing in, Rashad Owens, wide receiver out of Oklahoma State. He actually had his best year at Oklahoma State in 2023, was actually the MVP of their bowl game in 2023, giving this a B+ grade as well. Look, Troy Walters has shown that he can do a nice job developing these UDFAs and getting them in a spot where they can contribute for this football team. The Bengals have had success doing that at this position in the past, and maybe Rashad Owens is the next guy for them. Jamoy Mays giving this a B grade for Cincinnati. He didn't really do much. Was at Chattanooga before finishing his career with the Cincinnati Bearcats. And look, the production really wasn't at that high of a level, but the Bengals love bringing in the local guys, right? If there's a UC guy, they would love to snap him and have him a part of their off-season program. We'll see. Maybe he can pop. I think this was the right call, bringing in a guy from Clifton right across the street, but I don't anticipate him having much of a role for this team. Who is your favorite undrafted free agent? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. 13 guys to choose from. Let me know which one is your favorite. Michigan long snapper William Wagner. I'm giving this one an A. Look, they're bringing him in, and I view this kind of as a competition. Open competition between Cal Adamitis and William Wagner for that long snapper spot. I didn't really think Adamitis had any bad snaps. He wasn't perfect, but he really didn't cost you, I didn't think, this past year. But a lot of people view Wagner as one of the best long snappers in college football, and I definitely think this is going to be a competition. Don't be surprised if he perhaps goes out there and wins this battle. It's not my prediction. I think it will be Adamitis back with McPherson and Rico, but William Wagner certainly a guy to monitor at that long snapper spot. Payton Thorne, quarterback out of Auburn, giving this a B grade. I never was really a Payton Thorne guy, to be completely honest with you. Now, he is an athlete, right? He can run around and create with his legs, which kind of is a bit of a different element to what Cincinnati has in their quarterback room with really their backup, Jake Browning, not doing much of that. He's not going to compete with Browning for the backup job, but he will compete with Woodside for the QB3 spot. I don't think he wins it, but Payton Thorne being brought into the Bengals quarterback room. Eric Gregory, defensive tackle out of Arkansas, giving this one an A. Obviously coming from an SEC school, that's always intriguing to me. If you're bringing in a UDFA that has played in big-time games, I always think that is kind of puts them in a good position to settle into the NFL as opposed to a guy that goes to perhaps a smaller school. Bengals are probably going to take 10 defensive linemen. We'll see if any of the UDFAs can beat out somebody that's projected to get on the roster and steal a spot from them. Keep an eye on Eric Gregory. Shaquan Loyal out of Rutgers, the lone safety Cincinnati bringing in their UDFA class. Giving this one an A- grade just because you needed another body in the room. Shoot, maybe he pops off and provides you something at that safety spot, but he's going to be competing with guys like Jalen Key and PJ Jules kind of for that, fifth safety spot. Cincinnati probably only going to take 4. I think their safety room's kind of made up right now, but we'll see who kind of separates himself from that latter part of the room. Quaylee Conley, running back out of Arizona, giving this one a B+. Really, the way I think the Bengals will probably take 4 running backs, right? Obviously, Chase Brown's your guy. P. Ryan, Moss coming back. Taj Brooks, you're taking him in the 6th round. And then my next favorite guy is Kendall Milton, who was a UDFA out of Georgia last year. I would lean on him ahead of Quaylee Conley personally. But Quaylee Conley definitely showed some stuff there at Arizona that final season. Maybe he can vault his way into that RB5 spot, and then obviously you're only an injury away from something happening. But I would say that Kendall Milton probably is going to have a step over Conley throughout the entirety of the offseason program. Make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page. So don't miss out. Help me out. Give me a follow over on Twitter. Grade the Shemar Stewart pick. Let me know in the comments of today's show. A, B, C, D, or F. D. Riley says, any more free agency action? I don't think so. Would like to see him bring in a safety. Again, we'll have that on a future video for you guys. But we'll see if ultimately they decide to do that or not. Doesn't feel like they will, because I've been saying that since the end of last year and they did not. But let me know grades for Shemar Stewart. I think as fan base, we all need to start warming up to it. He's here, 17 overall pick. Hopefully he can contribute. The ceiling's through the roof for him. And falling on the shoulders of Al Golden. See some B's, B-. I think people along with me are kind of coming around a little bit. I get the frustration on draft night. Last Thursday, I get it. But we get in here through the offseason program, approach training camp. We all got to get behind him, and hopefully it works out the best. We will be back live next Wednesday. Don't miss out on any of our live shows. Thought that was a good one there today. I appreciate all the interaction in the comments section. We will be back next Wednesday around 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss out. Hit that sub button for me right now.